All right. Hello, Kevin. And by the time our clients will be seeing this video, they will have had a Memorial Day weekend. So happy Memorial Day weekend to you. And we like to honor all those fallen for the Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely, Charlie. Thanks.
Absolutely. Right on. So today we're going to talk about probably the most asked and obvious question. Just go to cash. Just sell and go to cash. And a lot of our clients are very knowledgeable and they know the answer to that. But it is a great question. Why not? And a lot of our retirees, people getting income, ask the same question. Kevin, what say you?
Well, usually, why don't we go to cash is previewed by the statement of the market is going down.
Mhm.
So why not just go to cash? So to us, Charlie, I think even though this is one of the most common questions to us, this screams danger. This screams danger zone when someone wants to consider going to cash. And the first thing I think about is that what are you trying to do when you say you want to go to cash? You're trying to relieve pressure and stress and emotion. Like, it's painful to watch your money poof go away. Some of your money go away, not all your money go away, but some of your money goes down, and it's painful. So we feel like that if we go to cash, it's going to relieve the pain. It's going to relieve the stress. And most people don't ask the second question is, you go to cash, now what? And that's really the reason why we try so hard to help people not go to cash, Charlie. And by the way, one final thing, I once had a client after we worked together for years, and he said, well, if I go to cash, you're going to get paid less, aren't you? And I said, no, that's the good part about being a fee only, is that we probably will get paid less over time because you're going to have less money, but we don't have a financial interest in keeping people invested.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point. One of the things, Kevin, we've seen firsthand is that if someone does go to cash, it doesn't relieve stress. It's just now replaced with a different kind of stress. Every day in this week, we've just experienced, it's only noon today. So, but we're probably going to experience the first up, market in several weeks. So when those markets are up, even in the middle of a downturn, that's stressful if you're not in it. So it just replaces one stress for another as well.
Yeah, Charlie. And the other overall thing, I know we're going to get into some data here, but the other thing is that when you're investing through markets, good and bad, I would consider you to be an investor. When you move over to the other lane and you say, all right, let's start trying to time the market and go. Most people say, I don't want to time the market. I just want to go to cash. You immediately become a speculator. You're no longer an investor. You've moved out of the, I'm going to invest. I understand the philosophy to, all right, I'm going to start playing with my money going in and out of the market. And you've left the investment lane.
That's right. And just to be clear, to us, it's hard for me not to go to cash. But the thing that keeps me from doing it personally and with our clients is that I know staying put is hard and it's a tough decision. But we only can do that because we know every other decision is worse. Every other option is usually worse unless we just get really lucky somehow, which is not highly probable. And we like to stay with the highly probable outcomes. So
yeah, Charlie, and we've had a number of people that have come to us over the years and said, what are y'all going to do when markets go down? And we've told them we're not going to do anything. We want to set up your investments to be able to weather downturns, and it will be painful. We always tell people we'll cry together.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people will tell us, I'm going to go with this other firm because they're going to do something when markets go down. They have a strategy to time the markets and maybe even ring the bell when they're on the bottom and then put all their money back in. At least that's the story that's told. And it's a very alluring story, Charlie.
It is. It's very alluring. And one of the things that you and I do is the moment we invest our clients' money, their life savings, we have to assume that this kind of market's going to happen the next day. So we are prepared for it ahead of time. We're proactive. I don't believe you can be reactive. In fact, it's going through the storm, and you just got to kind of hold tight sometimes. The time to make changes is not in the middle of the storm. So we try to do that beforehand and try to prepare for that. One of the examples is with our retirees. When our retirees or near retirees, they need cash for income, they need cash for their life expenses. They're in retirement, and that's where their income is coming from, their portfolios. We do have cash. We want to have cash, or maybe cash-like investments, like an ultra short-term government bond, perhaps. But that cash is there because we know that there are times when investments go down, and we don't really want to withdraw investments if there's a chance that they might go down. So that usually is part of the game plan when someone is taking retirement income.
So yeah, in theory, and I'll say in theory and then practice, in theory, a retiree should only have as much in the market that they know they're not going to spend in the next number of years. And that can be debated. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? I lean more towards the 10-year mark, just because we know from a probability standpoint in 10 years, markets are not usually down over a 10-year time period. But that's what we should be doing if it's too painful.
Yep. So Kevin, let's just, we've talked about the emotional side of this. What do the numbers say about when let's say I go to cash? Of course, you and I know there is no magic bell. There is no magic signal. We talked to some of the smartest people in the world about investing, and there's no magic signal. What do the numbers look like when we come out of the market and maybe we miss some of those best days? Because the best days often, I should say, come on the heels of a really bad market. In 2020 was a great example of that.
So Charlie, as you just said, sometimes the best days in markets, when there's no volatility, you're not going to have extreme up days. You can, but typically when there's extreme down volatility, the same time that's going on is there's extreme up volatility. I mean, that's what we've seen in history. So some of the best times to be in markets is actually the worst times to be in markets. So this slide here shows the Russell 3000, which is kind of all of the U.S. stock market over a 25-year period. That's a very reasonable investment lifetime. So 1997, 2021, $1,000, if you just stayed invested, you stayed in your seat, became $10,367. I think that's a 10 times amount of money there, Charlie. Now, one of the stressful times, and I remember this, I remember living through this. If you left the market in November in 2008 and went to cash, that was kind of getting about halfway down. I think the final market downturn was March of 2009, but you missed out on a great amount of the growth in that time period. So just by getting out that week, or missing that week, I should say, you lost a lot of return. If you missed the greatest month, which was April 22nd, 2020, this was post-COVID, you missed the greatest month there, just took out the month's return, 8,279. The 3 months, you can see, again, 2020, you had a lot less money. And if you missed 6 months, you had even less money. Now, again, when people are talking about this, they're saying, look, I want to be out for the bad times, and then I want to get back in perfectly. And that's again, it's very hard to do, Charlie.
And Kevin, the amazing thing about that chart is that those best week slash month slash whatever was 2008, 2020. Again, that's fascinating, because that was right in the middle of maybe a little bit of hell, it might felt like to some people. Let me show you too. I want to share, Kevin, real quick, what this looks like in real life, because I captured a couple scenarios. And this is 2020, not quite the full year, because I just captured it at the beginning of December. But this is a person that stayed the course, and it was tough, Kevin. We stayed the course, recovered later on in the year. And in the big scheme of things, this is a quick recovery. That was one of the quickest ever, but it's still a tough few months. It doesn't feel quick when you're in the middle of it. So we kind of started to break even towards the fall, and then boom, another little down. And then finally at the end of the year, this investor recouped and came out ahead, up about 100,000 for the year. And so
past performance is not indicative of future results.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so. It's not only a disclaimer that we're required to say; it's actually true.
Yep.
And so the past performance doesn't mean anything. This is just an example of kind of making a decision, possibly, and how tough it is. And again, this is a similar investor, the same amount of money, same type of investments, but yet decided to try to go to cash. And you can see this line down here is the times when we just didn't really want to get back in the market. There really were no great times in 2020, even after the market bottomed in March 23 of 2020, which was way early, by the way, because it still felt painful, April, May, June, July. But nonetheless, this person never quite got back in the market, maybe to the end there just a little bit, and experienced a loss of about $45,000. That's a swing of $145,000. The other investor was up 100, and this one was down about 45. And this is not a recoverable kind of thing, because you can't just jump back in the market, take more risk, and expect to recover that. That's really not the way it works.
So Charlie, when you said that you decided to go to cash, it wasn't we decided to go to cash. It was the client deciding to go to cash. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we have every once in a while, we're the advisors, the clients are the boss. Every once in a while, someone says, "Hey, I really want to do this," and we give advice and we give our best efforts, but they're the bosses in the end. And that's an example. Let me show you a graphic of what 2020 looked like as you're trying to get back in the market. This is a graphic, and it's from Visual Capitalist, and it's very interesting. You can Google them and you can see all these graphics. But these are all the events that were going on in 2020. Not to mention, we had an election, and people were dying of COVID, and all kinds of rioting and things going on in the world. So boy, it was a really nasty, tough year to try to get back in the market. Again, it's hard to stay in, but it's almost harder if you're out to get back in. And so you can see what that cost looks like. But it always sounds better when you just say it on paper, like, let's get out and get back in. But boy, it's really nearly impossible to make that good decision twice.
Yeah. So Charlie, I got one more, if I can show one more graphic, and it's
Yeah.
actually just using the stock market. So let's say that your name is Nostradamus. Okay. You are Nostradamus.
Yeah.
You predict the future. So let's say January 1st or somewhere in the first week, you said, "I'm getting out of the market," and you called it right.
Yeah.
Market starts to go down. You feel good. Market starts to go up. You say, "Oh, wait a second." On this day, you're like, "Oh man, I should probably get back in." So then you put your money back in. Then it starts going down. So what do you do then? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you say, "All right, I'm getting back out again." And then the market goes up a few days. And so here, this is the part that's really interesting to me, is March of 2029. This person that had woken up on March 29, who got out over here, is thinking, "All right, all clear now. Everything's all clear." And, Ukraine war started back, I think it was 224. But it looked like everything was getting better. I don't know if you remember this. We as financial planners said, "Okay, less calls, less of our clients are worried."
Yeah.
And then whammo.
Yeah.
So now, as we sit here today, and the S&P 500 is at 4127, as you said, the last few days have been good. Is it all clear now?
Yeah.
Let's say if inflation, oh, wait a second. We did get some news today that inflation looks like it's not as bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it time? Is it all clear now?
Exactly.
You and I both know there's going to be something 3 months from now that we're going to say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened." There's always something to fear, always.
Yep.
So once you go out of this lane of being an investor and you go into this lane of being a move money person,
Yeah.
the life is not as good either. I mean, the life is bad being an investor. It's very painful, but going to cash does not relieve that pain.
I agree totally. Kevin, that chart that you had, I don't know if you can pull that back up real quick.
Sure, of course.
I love to see the short term, and you're describing the pain that we're going through right now, but maybe hit the 5-year or all button, and let's just look at it. Look at the different perspective.
Wait a second. That actually doesn't look bad.
I know, exactly. So, and that's just 2018. Well, that is, there you go. That looks even better. So you can see that even though right now we're in the middle of this battle, and for long-term investors, all of our investors are long-term, even if they're in retirement, because you need to have equities to outpace inflation. You're also going to have cash and bonds, but still, it's just hard to. What is that? Right? I think the saying is appropriate. It's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes. I think I said that right.
Yeah. So Charlie, my final comment is just that people often say that timing the market is hard because you have to be right twice. That's not really true. Once you start being a market timer and you're going to live for 30 to 40 years, how many times do you have to be right over
Yeah.
that 30 to 40 year time period? What's that going to do to your emotional health? Investing is miserable, but it's a lot better than becoming a speculator in my eyes.
Absolutely, Kevin. Yep. Hopefully this was helpful and provided some perspective again. And we'll get through this together. We know that there are some silver linings out there. We can talk about those next time. It's not all terrible news unless you're watching the news constantly, then it feels like it. But otherwise, we appreciate you as clients. We hope this was beneficial. Please reach out to us, email, text, phone, and we'd love to chat and review your investment game plan as well. Thank you very much.